there's one thing I don't like is really introducing myself. It's so awkward. Like I find it very awkward. Like it's so hard. It takes a lot out of me. But anyway, hi guys, welcome to Career and Corporate Hub. I'm sitting with Malebo, and Malebo is coming to give us a career advice. So before we get into that, we let's start by knowing who Malebo is.
Oh
Hi
my
Malebo,
gosh.
welcome.
Now I'm the one who's just feeling a bit. I'm kidding, no. So I am Malebo Dondolo.
Yes.
An HR professional. Maybe not necessarily an HR professional. I am actually studying towards being an industrial psychologist at the moment. So people tend to think the two are the same, but not really. I'm more on the behavioral side of HR. So I'm literally a psychologist in the workplace. That's how I'd explain what I do. But I mean, I've got a long history, not long because I'm still young, but I've got a history in HR. So yeah, I consider myself as both.
Yeah. Before we started with the interview, I was actually telling her that, when we were still in varsity, people used to look at HR as, one of the funny courses. And when I got to the industry, HR was what can I say, the root of the company.
It starts with HR.
It starts with HR. It ends with HR. Yes.
Yeah.
The hiring and the firing go.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but yes. And why is that so?
I think, sure, the biggest misconception around HR is that we only hire and fire. And if we're being honest, there's so much that goes into HR.
There is a lot.
It's an entire value chain. So think of yourself as an employee coming into an organization. When I say it starts and ends with us, I am literally meaning it starts and ends with HR, right? So think of it like this. I'm coming in as an employee. The first step is I saw an advert. Who compiled that? It's HR.
It's HR.
Right? Then, okay, fine, I get interviewed. Who is interviewing me?
It's HR.
It's HR.
Yes.
I get an offer letter. Who is giving me that offer?
HR.
It's HR, right? And then I come into the organization, I get onboarded. Who does that normally?
That's HR.
So now this is pre. Now you are going into the organization, you're an employee. My first thing is, okay, I'm a new person. I'm probably going to be trained on how the organization functions. That's learning and development.
Yes.
It's HR, right? Now, obviously, maybe I'm there for a year, 2 years, 3 years. I want to become something. I want to develop. That's, again, an aspect of learning and development, which is HR. But before we even get to that, I've been with the organization maybe a year or two, and then I realized that, I'm not being paid enough, or maybe on an annual basis, I get a performance bonus of sorts. That's HR, because it's compensation, it's benefits.
Yeah. I mean, I actually started really respecting HR when I was doing my postgraduate diploma. I had a module called HRD, Human Resources and Development. And the policies and that HR holds, I was so shocked that really HR is the foundation. And also looking at, I like the fact that you broke it down. And for an example, payments, HR is the one that comes up with the, I don't know how, markets, benchmarking, everything. Yeah. And maybe looking at the economy in the country, things are very bad, and then the high employment, the high rate. I mean, the
high rate of youth unemployment.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
It's so crazy. And when you look at in the internet, there's a lot of companies that are hiring, but then when you look at people that are sitting at home with degrees, for me, I feel like somehow it's also skewed, because when you pass matric, the only thing you want to go do engineering, medicine, and the famous,
the well-known career paths.
Yeah.
Listen, I think Let's start with the rate of youth unemployment in the country. Ne? I think there are a lot of, especially when you talk about the ones that are qualified, there are a lot of people who go into the traditional careers. And then what ends up happening is we find ourselves with a high demand, a lesser demand than what is available in the actual pool. So when you talk about 10 years ago, if you were going to say to me, I'm studying towards becoming an engineer, you are a scarce commodity. But now, fast forward 10 years later, you're no longer that because everyone wants to do it.
Everyone wants to do it, yeah.
And where a lot of people tend to get it wrong is that when a career becomes popular and people tell you there is money in it, everyone wants to do it.
And it gets flooded.
And then it becomes an issue.
Yeah,
then you find yourself sitting at home, you've got your qualification, but because there are 10,000 other Kodanis out there, you now get benchmarked based on your grades.
Yeah, but I also feel like it's also misunderstood. For an example, I studied mechanical engineering. Mechanical engineering, I learned about manufacturing. I learned about different principles of from other engineering. Like, for an example, industrial. I like using industrial engineering as an example because, well, that's where I went when I went into the industry.
Oh, wow.
I feel like people don't understand that if you have a degree in mechanical engineering, you can apply for a job in industrial engineering. I think that's also misunderstood as well. So now we end up having a lot of people sitting at home because they feel like when I've got a degree in mechanical engineering, I must become a mechanical engineer. But we don't look at the different disciplines that we learn in like the whole course. True. I feel like that's also...
That's very true. I think it's the same for like an HR as an example. So HR has recruitment and selection. HR has learning and development. HR has employee relations. HR has compensation and benefits. So people tend to limit it to the you hire and you fire. So if I tell you I'm in HR, the automatic assumption is that can I give you my CV?
And that's what happens. Yes.
And that's what happens. So I think it's the same when you look at an engineer. If I'm going to say to you, I've got a mechanical engineering qualification, a person would randomly maybe even ask you, can you fix a car? And you're probably like, but wait. Just because I'm a mechanical engineer, it doesn't mean that I can fix a car because there's more to it than what people know. Yeah. So I think where our education in general needs to do is become more transparent about what goes into courses. So we've generalized and said this course does this, that course does that. But in reality, when you're actually in the actual role or in the actual field, you realize that there's much more.
There's much more.
And I love your podcast because of that, because you are bringing awareness around topics that generally people wouldn't talk about.
Yeah. And you're like, she's actually one of the people who really have been supporting me. Like, girl, I love this idea. Yeah, no, really true. And yo, guys, I was actually watching my videos, and I use a lot of and. I don't know why, but please bear with me. I will get rid of this habit. I don't know how. So when you're still in high school, I think there's still not enough awareness. I went to one of the high schools, the technical high school. You know, when I was there to talk to the kids, to motivate the kids. And then after talking, I asked like just certain individuals, well, what are you going to study? And one of the kids told me that I'm going to study psychology. And I'm like thinking, psychology, are you not going to learn about the human body, or I don't know, but you're in a technical high school where it's about technical subjects, and you're doing grade 12. It's like kids are not consulting. There isn't enough awareness, you know, in terms of when you are in grade 9, what is it that you can, you know, choose? What would you advise?
Sure. I think firstly, parents, stop telling your kids what to study.
Oh, I like that.
That's first and foremost. Yes. Parents, stop it. It's not okay. Your kid knows what they like. So when they say, Mom, I actually like psychology, then don't push them towards
engineering
technical
or medicine.
kind of modules, even at that age. Because what then ends up happening is whenever a child wants to do something, they'll always second guess what they want to do, because they'll probably feel like, I'm not making my parents proud.
And it's all about that.
So that is the starting point, because the child ending up in a technical school wasn't their decision. And you'll probably find that the child has been answering the question of what do you want to do, but the parents brush it off. And the thing is, guys, as parents, you already see your child's interest even before they go into into high school. By then you can see this one likes fixing things, this one likes to act like a doctor, this one likes to talk. Like, how are you doing? You can see a child and how they are as a child. And that's how I'd like to define a career, where the person's passionate about, or where their passions lie. That is their career. I don't talk career in the sense, what did you study? Because a lot of people study a lot of things that they're actually not passionate about, and hence you'll find it's a job now, it's work.
And you don't want it to feel like a job. You want to enjoy when you get to workplace. It doesn't feel like it's taking a lot out of you. I think that's where a lot of people end up falling into depression.
True.
Yeah.
But also, I'm also cognizant of the country we're in, because I don't want to make it sound like I'm speaking from a place of privilege also, because there are some people who don't actually have a choice, right?
Yeah,
let's talk about the rural areas, the townships, which is a majority of where a lot of Black people come from, and where you'll find maybe the issues around being pushed into a certain direction, right? So when you come into a previously disadvantaged school, and the child is in a technical kind of setup, and they're telling you that they want to do psychology. Now that you're in that space, and you know that, okay, for your psychology, you probably just need English, if I remember correctly, it's English. And just the other languages you have to pass, I think, with the entry into university. Don't now, as a parent, say to your grade 12, no, I still want you to do engineering.
Because that was your dream.
Because that was your dream, that was not fulfilled.
Yeah.
Because you end up with a population where mental health becomes a big issue, like you're saying. You end up with a population where the suicide rates are high. You end up with a population where people drop out of school because they are being pushed in directions that they don't want.
True. And they end up looking at themselves as failures, like they have failed in life.
Exactly.
Whereas they did not fail because they were not following their own footsteps.
True.
Sure. Yeah, guys. This is intense.
But also, I mean, so that was the first, like, parents, just allow your kids to make their mind and support, right?
Yeah.
And then the second thing is around, we have more careers than being a doctor, being a lawyer, being an engineer, being a teacher, being a nurse. We have many more careers, guys. Yeah. The scope is so broad. And I think I was telling Kodani that the BA kind of streams have a bad reputation. And not because, I don't know why, but there's this whole reputation. And I was like, there are so many interesting careers that you can do within a Bachelor of Arts kind of setup. But we've been told so much that, do your technical STEM kind of qualifications. But in reality, yes, we are moving towards a digital kind of world, but you do need soft skills.
You do, definitely. I mean, as we mentioned, that in the beginning, that a company, the foundation of a company is HR. So if we don't have those skills in the company, like, a company is not going to run, basically. Exactly. And with learning and development side of HR, that also guides, for an example, the technical people on the more advanced equipment, more advanced software, like everything. That's what I basically studied about when I was doing HRD module. I was like, oh, okay, this is interesting. Yeah. And now with when companies are hiring,
yeah,
starting with graduates,
Okay.
It's usually 65%. Yeah. Why is that so? The reason why I ask, you may find that somebody who passed from a university with an average of 50 something goes into a company and they really perform. They like do very well. Why is it like that? And also looking at like being a graduate trainee, you're going there to get trained.
True.
Yeah.
Very true. Yeah. So I think the one thing goes back to what I mentioned earlier. So if we find ourselves with a big pool of applicants, ne? Currently the one way to assess whether or not you can perform a role is assessing your intelligence, and that is currently done through marks, obviously. Ne? That's the one thing. And then some companies will do psychometric assessments. On top of that, other companies will then do interviews as part of the process. But before I even meet Kodani or before I even meet Malebo, the only thing I can tell that, okay, this person has a potential to actually perform is their intelligence, which is currently measured through marks.
Yeah.
That is, I completely understand the question and I disagree with the approach 100%. But with the way in which the labor market currently looks, when a company posts an advert for a graduate program, on average you get between 3,000 to 10,000 applicants.
That's a lot. That is a lot.
On average.
And how many is like one company taking? Less than 20 sometimes?
Exactly. So that's why you'll then find when you apply, they'll ask you those questions. Do you have a minimum qualification? Yes. Do you do yes? So it's filtering.
Yeah.
Ne? And then if you come and say you've got the 65 when you don't have the 65, there's someone at the back who's going to take the shortlist, right? And actually vet the information. And then you get disqualified based on that.
Lying. So if you do agree that you don't have the 65,
it's the lying and it's the fact that you don't have the 65.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And then they'll move on to those. So it's literally it's just based on the fact that that's the one way of measuring your possible or potential to be able to perform the role.
Yeah. And how? Okay, I'm gonna ask about the psychometric tests after this question. You know, I was talking to my mentor, and she was saying that, you know, when you go for interviews, most people are looking for, yes, you've been selected, you passed the average marks stage. Now you go for an interview, and the interviewers, like most interviewers, are looking for how do you roll your tongue? Like the ones with an advantage. Can you please talk about that? Because yeah.
Oh man.
You know, we're not like they're not. She was saying that we're not thinking that these kids are coming for training. Now we are looking for the ones with, you know, who could roll their tongue better, like speak better English. Yes, and sometimes some even go back to say, I couldn't find the one I was looking for. But there's like kids who were selected to come for an interview, but because they couldn't roll their tongue, they were not selected. So looking at the selection of graduates to go get trained or students to go get trained, it is a bit unfair because you are getting hired to go get trained. Do you get what I mean? Sure. And some people go there with an advantage that they went to a Model C school or private school, and some people come from like deep rural areas and the confidence is not there, you know. But at the end of the day, everyone is going there to get trained, and some people even go back because to say, well, I couldn't find the candidate I was looking for because they couldn't find that person who could roll their tongue. Like why is that so?
Sure. So I think the first thing is that biases exist. So I'll make a very random example. When you look at someone's CV nowadays, one of the things that we advise against is having your picture on your CV.
Yep, I don't put my picture on my CV.
Because I might look at your CV and say, this one doesn't seem like someone I would vibe with. And it's a bias. Ne? And similar with interviews. The reason why companies introduce panel interviews where it's 3 people, 4 people, whatever, in an interview is so that not one person is subjected to making that decision. Try and make it more fair. And obviously, when you're in a panel, now you must justify, but why are you saying no to this person?
So you must give like clear reason why.
Exactly.
Reasons why, yeah.
But also, I think our schooling system, high school as well as university, we have a gap in that there could be workshops around interview preparation as part of the ongoing learning.
Yeah.
So that by the time I get to an interview, I'm not stuck there and being like, what is going on?
Yeah.
Because most of the time, people get stuck there, get stuck in the, I can't even answer your question because I'm not used to being in this kind of a situation.
True.
And what I've also realized is that a lot of people who have had the first interview session at that point in time, when you're interviewing them, do not do as well as someone who's a repeat interviewee.
Okay. Yeah. It's like, you know what Michelle says is like, life is about practicing.
Exactly.
So what you do on a daily basis, you are practicing to become that person.
Exactly.
So now the person who like doing an interview for the first time, it's obviously you don't know the type of questions they ask, but that's where you have to do your research as well. But still, it doesn't.
It's not the same. So that's why I think for me, when we look at things like life orientation, I know like with some schools they do interview preps, né? And
I like that. I feel like it's still lacking, like very lacking in the rural areas. Because for me, moving from Limpopo going to Cape Town, I was like really, Limpopo, it was only black people. And then things were taught in Chivenda. And then when you get there, things are different. I was even scared of standing in front of the class and talk because I felt like, oh, I'm shy, I can't do it. But I was not even thinking that it's preparing myself for the future.
Exactly.
So I really like that when you mention about life orientation, that they must do this preps of like interviews or presentations. Yeah.
Exactly.
I don't remember really doing presentations in my school.
Exactly.
Like standing in front of a class and then you would talk. I honestly don't remember.
And I can make an example. Like high school, I think your foundation is the foundation for building your confidence. And the reason I say that is because in high school, it's where you transition from being like a child into a teenager, and you kind of develop your personality, right?
Yeah.
So as soon as you are able to know that I can stand in a room in a room and be able to control that room and put my point across, no matter what language you speak, it's the confidence that will translate and you will carry through.
Yeah, but how do you build confidence?
Sure, that's a very tricky one because people aren't the same. People aren't exposed to the same things. People don't have the same resources.
Yeah.
But I think the starting point is being able to, if I'm a school-going child, and I'm given a task of like presenting, be able to do your research and present.
Yeah.
And again, I'm gonna go back to our parents. Parents need to play the role of, I need my child to be a confident human being. So as a parent wanting your child to be a confident human being, you affirm your child. You tell your child that they can be what they want to be. You support your child in whatever they want to do. If you have the means, make your child get into hobbies.
Yeah.
Get your child to socialize if you've got the means.
And for me, it starts at home. I like the fact that you said you must affirm your child. I look at my kids. My kids love climbing. But for me to stop them from climbing, I don't scare them. I just talk sense. And sometimes I just make sure that the place is safe for them to climb and just explore how they want to explore the world. Because telling them, no, don't do this, no, don't do that, you are really killing their confidence.
That's true.
Yeah. And one thing I've noticed as well, like I don't know if this is like race, like it has nothing to do with, I don't know. But when you're talking, people say I'm very soft.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And then when you look at a white person when they talk, they sound very loud. And I feel like that's like a sign of confidence.
Yes.
And I was like, I literally I started observing how black people would talk and how white people would talk. And they would like really speak loudly with confidence. And then with black people, when they're speaking like English, they would speak very soft, or not just English, in a group of people. And I was like, I don't know, but I just somehow kind of related it to having the confidence. I don't know. Does it make sense?
It does. I don't know about how you grew up, ne?
Yeah.
But how I grew up, I wasn't really affirmed as a child.
Me too.
I didn't get the, oh my gosh, you're doing, I didn't get a lot of affirmation. And as a result, I would have to ask myself, am I doing well? Am I, ne?
Yeah.
And that's not safe for a child to gauge themselves.
Not at all.
And the reason I'm saying it becomes important to start there is because it translates into your adulthood. A lot of people who are affirmed and they're told that you can do this, you can see in how they do things. Like, even if you're going to disagree with them, they'll be like, no, it's fine. I know I can do it.
Exactly.
I know I can.
Exactly.
It's in me.
Yeah.
I know I can. And you don't leave it to another person to tell you. Whereas with some of us, you're still going to wait for Kodani to confirm, like, am I doing it?
Yeah. And for me, growing up, I was told that I was not good. Like in school, like, and that really killed my, and only when I was like, now that I'm an adult, I was like, no, I am good. Once I started telling myself that I am good, now I'm more like, I'm going to study my master's degree at this university, because now I've like really affirmed myself that I am good, and believing that you're good, become good. But if you don't believe that you are good.
So now if you grow up being told you are good, you can do it, you are amazing, you're a star, you can, whatever you put your mind to, you can achieve it. You are brilliant, you are kind, you are all of that. You grow up knowing that. That's how you grow up, right? There's no other way but to be confident in yourself.
Yeah. But also, can we just like the hiring HR practitioners, please, when you're interviewing like students, graduates, just also be mindful of the background of the person. I think they write in the CV where they come from. And, sometimes when you're competing against somebody who comes from a private school, the ones that are coming from a private school will be more advantageous. True. And now somehow the rating should also look into that.
I think I don't know, I stand to be corrected, né? But with my experiences, a lot of corporates are starting to focus on appointing people within the areas in which they operate in.
Okay.
So I'll make an example. There are a lot of big corporates in the Eastern Cape.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing a lot of adverts where it will say preference will be given to people from this area.
Okay.
And I think that it's a small step, but it's a necessary step. Because now, if I'm coming in, I'm from Gqeberha as an example, and the company in Gqeberha is saying it gives preference to the people in Gqeberha, I stand a higher chance, you know? Whereas if the same company is now going to be open to people from Gauteng, Cape Town, Durban, wada, then that's, I think, where the problem lies.
Because now you're only going to select the people that are coming from good schools. I see.
I think, so I think there is some work being done, but I agree with you. The being mindful of the person's surroundings, background, and all of that should definitely be something that is at the mind of the hiring.
Because, I mean, what makes the company is the amount of trainings that you give to the people, their development, how you develop, the people in the company. If you're not developing, your company is not gonna perform.
True.
Yeah. So that's what makes the people in the company.
True.
I don't know.
No, I hear you.
You can hire very smart people. I mean, not even smart people. Let's cut that out.
I'm thinking, you know what I'm thinking of when I'm looking at you and I'm like,
It doesn't
I'm
look
playing
like you
devil's advocate.
entirely agree.
No, I'm in my head. I'm playing devil's advocate, and the reason why I'm like, I'm running as if I'm acting as though it's my company. Ne? I'm running a company. I interview you, Koran.
Yeah.
You can barely say anything.
Yeah.
You can barely. How would I know if you can present in a meeting full of an exco? How would you know?
For a job that requires experience, I understand.
Okay, for like the entry level.
But for the entry level, that's what I'm like trying to, the point that I'm trying to raise. That guys, we need to look at different things. No, definitely for position that requires experience. No, definitely you want somebody who would get there and just continue. If somebody had left that position, who would just be able to fill in those boots.
Okay. So for grads it should be more lenient.
Yes. And now another thing that was really concerning when I went to one of the high schools, a child that was in grade 12, I mean that's like now in May, was asking me, well, I'm good with my hands, I want to go to a college. What is the difference between a college and a university? And and that was concerning for me because I look at it as it's almost June, universities are closing. It's like you haven't done really your research. So if you were to break that down, what is the difference? So we've got like your university, and then we've got your University of Technology, and then we've got your
college.
Yes, a college.
Do career days still happen, guys? Like, just thinking, and
I had that. I think April, just once, and that was when I was in grade 12, and we just went to Pretoria. I mean, coming from Venda to Pretoria, don't even care about the careers.
You like I'm going
the buildings, like yes.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So I think, let me just explain the differences now.
Yeah.
A university is a traditional university institution. You only do formal and non-technical post-matric qualifications. So what do I mean by that? In a university setting, you will not do a qualification that has a practical component, in the sense that you won't do anything that requires putting together something. It's
like very theoretical.
It's theory based. It's theory based. It starts with advanced diplomas leading up to an NQF level 10 qualification, which is a doctorate. That's a traditional university.
Yeah.
No? Then you've got a University of Technology. University of Technologies have catered for people who are more technological. What do I mean by that? You are more technical. You are someone who, yes, you want to go through the formal structure of going to university, but you are more technical minded and you would rather do something that is more technical and it gives you some practical skills as opposed to just pure theory.
Yeah, so you apply both theory and
practice, practical, in one. No? Similar to a University of Technology also has up to doctorate, but unlike a University of Technology starts at national diploma level.
Which I think now they changed the naming. I think it's diploma, not just national diploma anymore.
It's diploma, advanced diploma. Yeah, so that's where it starts with the University of Technology. Some University of Technologies offer certificates, but those are majority of the time offered at TVET colleges.
Okay.
Or colleges, private colleges. So private colleges are for more the certificate qualifications. Some of them are finishing off of like matric level qualification to upgrade or to do your actual matric. So starting from grade 9, you can do a N-based qualification, which is the equivalent of a grade 9, an N-based qualification, which is the equivalent of a grade 10, equivalent of a grade 11, equivalent of a matric, and then you do certificates.
Like N1, N2, N3, I see. Yeah. Okay.
So that's the main difference, I would say. So
And then-
if a person comes to me, and this is how I would advise on which one to
Yes.
choose. You come to me, my child loves putting things together. My child doesn't really do well in a traditional school. My child fails, but I can see my child is intelligent.
Yeah.
And they like putting together things. They can fix things. Take them to a college. Take your child to a college.
And when they obviously finish, they would become like, if they have done like technical subjects, I mean, they would become a technician. Artisan. No, they become artisans usually. Now that we're talking about that, is it advisable for somebody to go study like financial qualification or HR at a college?
Yeah.
Okay.
So not everyone is not everyone does well in the traditional schooling system. So it goes back to that question around 65%.
Yeah.
Traditional school is you come into class, you learn in this way, whereas with the college structure, they might even take you to a firm where you practice and have to get practical experience as an HR person for you to complete your qualification. But so it gives you that practice, that practical.
The opportunities of getting hired. Because I'm thinking with, like if you go to a college to do your technical qualification, you can become a technician. But then with HR, what are you going to become?
You can, so it depends on the level. So if you finish up until
NQF 5.
I think NQF 5,
yeah,
you would still need to do your NQF 6 to be equivalent of a diploma. And there, I would then say, you've got the foundation, then might as well continue.
Yeah.
And when you've got your N6, then you can apply for internships.
Okay.
So you'd be eligible for internships and graduates. Some companies for graduates, they only prefer bachelors and not necessarily diplomas, but it's a company thing. But once you've got your NQF 6 diploma, then it kind of allows you to apply.
Enter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
What is the advice on development? The reason why I ask, I believe that everyone is responsible for their own development. You 100%. Hear people everywhere saying that, but they know that I'm not doing anything, they must develop me, they 100%. Must do this. Like, what is your thought around that 100%. And how do we get developed? Yes,
it's development is self-driven. Like, you can't expect someone to make up or decide on your behalf. Yes, you can identify that, okay, maybe this person can act as a mentor, this person can support you in your journey as a coach. But when it comes to the actual doing of certain things that require you to get to the next level, it's you. So let me make an example. Let's say I see myself as a manager one day and I realize that the company that I work for has potential to get me there. I'm not going to sit back and say, oh no, they must now develop me.
And when does it start? Like, I'm new, just started my job. When do I start asking for development?
When you apply for the job that you are in that moment, it's a development step, because you want to see yourself at a specific point, right? That is part of development. It's just that people look at development as I have to be promoted or I have to go on this training course. No, when I have a plan and I've got a plan in my mind that, okay, in the next 3 years I'm gonna get into a role like this. In the next 3 years, I'm going to move from this level to that level. In the next 2 years, I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, and 4. Whatever action you take to supplement that is development.
Yeah. And with corporate people, can we really start structuring our future? Like, I feel like we feel like, okay, I'm doing this position and that's it, or wait for somebody to develop us, or we don't sit down and say, this is where I am now and this is where I see myself. I feel like a lot of people don't do that.
You're right, a lot of people don't, and I think a lot of people adopt the approach of, I'll wait for whatever to
Oh my
happen.
gosh.
A lot of people adopt that.
Yeah.
But the reason I say to you, development starts as soon as you start working. I think because your development is not something that happens once and you're done. You consistently and always are developing as a person.
Yeah.
And in your career, you're always consistently developing and growing. So when you've got a picture for yourself, you don't have a picture that starts today and it must end tomorrow.
Big picture thinking.
When you already say, okay, I'm a graduate, as an example, where do you see yourself? You're already like thinking, where do you see it? Are you going to be a graduate?
Talking about development, where does it start? Like, who do I consult? Do I consult my manager or HR? For me, I like to say HR is my best friend because they know the policy.
Yeah.
They are the ones who can give you like proper guidance in terms of development. And if I know this is where I want to be, HR can give me the direction on how to get there.
True.
Like, what is your advice for somebody who doesn't know where to start?
I mean, I agree with that. Make HR your best friend. We have enough enemies in the workplace, guys.
Yes, enough people making you guys your best friends.
No,
Yeah.
I joke. Make HR your best friend, yes. But in addition, also your manager should be your best friend. You should have an open communication line with your manager.
Yeah.
Your manager should know what your aspirations are. And if your manager says, no, I'm not doing this, then you can then say to your manager, it's fine, I'm going to HR.
Yes. And you know, when I talk to some people and they say, yeah, maybe they're talking about their performance review. My performance review went like this and then, and I'm thinking like, why are you not discussing your development plan with your manager?
Exactly.
You know, what is the performance review for? Are you just there to be told, this is where you must improve? You're waiting for your manager to tell you where to improve, but you're not even asking for feedback, which is quite important. Yeah,
that is so important.
Now that you're talking about like managers, why do people fight with their managers?
It's the lack of communication. So I think the nature of a manager-employee relationship.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time, an employee will wait for the manager to be the one who says, let's meet, let's talk. Or I'm setting up a one-on-one. If I haven't heard from my manager in like 2 months, that's a red flag.
Yeah, true.
And nothing is stopping me from setting up a session with my manager.
Yeah.
And being like, hey, I haven't heard from you.
As you mentioned, we are responsible for our own development, or, you know, like seek for feedback.
Feedback, development, just general communication. How are things going? Am I on track with this project? Do you have some concerns? I was thinking of applying for this training. What do you think? You know, when you have a consultative relationship with your manager, you then realize that actually they are just as human as I am.
Yeah.
But because a lot of people see them as my manager, and it's like that figure somewhere there, you know, and it's like I'm scared to address this, or then there's the distance in the relationship, which allows for misconceptions, misunderstandings, which lead to the fights.
True. And I look at my current manager. I look at her as my mentor. Because, you know, every single time we have a session, like, she really, like, I always gain value in like sessions that we have. And I look at how our relationship was in the beginning. I was not sure where I stand, but I had to build that. And because I built that, like, built a relationship with her, I feel like she's became more approachable. When I need support, I go to her. And that also, like, the hierarchy, I feel like most people don't respect the hierarchy, and that's why we end up not liking our managers, because we want to overpower our managers.
True.
So yeah, I think that's another biggest issue we have. I should actually invite somebody who's been managing for years.
Yeah, no.
So that they just give us like an advice on how to build a better relationship with a manager, with your manager. And not just, you know, you don't have to be best friends.
No, definitely.
Like a good working relationship, that's what you need.
Yeah. I think just my last sense on this one around managers.
Yeah.
I treat my approach is I treat my manager like I'm treating any other person I'd meet on the street. The reason I say that is because how I approach a person is important. I don't think if I meet a random person on the street and I approach them with the then they would be okay with me. They'd also try and defend, right? But I think the issue becomes in how the approach happens on both sides. I'm not trying to say employees are always the ones that are wrong.
Yeah.
The approach is the issue. And if I've given you feedback on something I don't like and it continues, then there's a cause for concern. But if you haven't given a person feedback on something you don't like, then you can't assume that they're not doing something correctly.
Yeah.
Because they also don't know.
True. So you basically need to align.
Communication is communication. Approach it also in the right way. Don't just then it's like, okay, defense mode.
Yeah.
And then it becomes downhill from there.
True. And in closing, what would be your advice? Just any advice.
Oh wow, I've got advice on advice.
Yeah.
But in closing, I think guys, get to know as much as you can about the different careers that exist. There is such a broad array. Artificial intelligence, big data, all of those topics are giving us careers that are just don't even exist as of today. However, also do your research in terms of where is there too many people now in careers to avoid finding yourself in a situation where you are one in a million.
But where do you find that information?
The stats are out there. University stats show how many people passed a certain qualification. You Google, it will show you. In 2023, this faculty had 10,000 graduates in these and these and these and this. It shows you. We just don't know where to look, I guess, number one.
Yeah.
Or what to search for. But do your searches on what is the most graduated course in South Africa. You can find that data.
And that's not the one you want to go for.
Because then you're going to be in, fighting to be seen.
Yeah. Sure.
You know?
That's
and
true.
Guys, there's nothing wrong with entrepreneurship either.
True.
Because I think there's been the stigma around entrepreneurship and people thinking, people are lazy. Not everyone is meant for the traditional schooling system. And if you see yourself as one of those people who aren't, then there's nothing wrong with it. However, I will say, supplement yourself with a qualification, guys. In South Africa, in the world, qualifications matter. But where maybe resources are an issue, or where access to information is an issue, let's not close our doors to entrepreneurship.
And also limiting ourselves to South Africa. Like, people are going abroad, so there is high demand as well.
Guys, people are teaching teaching English in China, in Japan, in Korea, in all these countries, and people will think, but you studied and you've got a huge qualification. Why would you want to go? It gives you life experiences that you wouldn't get by just sitting in South Africa and being unemployed.
Yes. That's when you talk about life experiences. I was watching a video on YouTube of this other lady. She's an au pair, I think that's what it's called, in America. She was like, I went there because I wanted to explore USA, not because I really wanted to become an au pair. No. And I was like, actually, if I knew about it, like when I was still in varsity or post-varsity, I would have like done that before I got married or anything, just to get that international experience.
Exactly. Good job. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. It was quite informative.
Thanks, guys.
And thank you for your continuous support. Like, I highly, highly appreciate it. And every time we talk, you keep motivating me to keep pushing, and
definitely.
also to make me realize really why I started this channel. Like, sometimes I think of giving up, because it becomes a lot. But then, the words that you always talk to me, like, yo, girl, I really like what you're doing. Like, there's a big demand in terms of, information on careers. So I highly appreciate that. So thank you so much. And to you guys, thank you for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe, comment, like. Remember, when you share as well, the information will get to the right people. Yeah.
Bye, guys.